All right, good morning. Before I head down to Levi's Stadium for another day of 49ers training camp, I know that there's a lot of buzz about Brandon Aiyuk and particularly the Pittsburgh Steelers swirling right now. Nothing completed at the moment, but there's a big question out there. This has turned into a little bit of a debate online. So, this is the 2-minute drill to tackle that question. Who has the leverage, Brandon Aiyuk or the 49ers? I think people are way oversimplifying this because there are actually two separate arenas here. And even if one party holds the leverage in one of the arenas, it doesn't necessarily hold the leverage in the other arena. The arena of an isolated contract negotiation is closed off for many trades, and the 49ers can keep it in this arena if they want to. If you're just talking about a potential negotiation between the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk, the 49ers obviously have the leverage. I'll explain a little bit more soon. But then there's also the arena of a potential trade. Brandon Aiyuk has leverage in that situation because he can actually dictate where he goes out of the options that the 49ers give him. So let's go back to this, the arena of an isolated contract negotiation. This is just simple stuff. And I think both arenas and knowledge of the dynamics in both are going to come in handy as this progresses. This nears a conclusion. Who knows? This could end up going in any which direction based on both sides obviously agreeing to compensation, and both of those negotiations are separate. So the arena of an isolated contract negotiation, this is the one that we've been talking about for months now with Brandon Aiyuk. We talk about it, I think, every single season with a 49ers player because they have a lot of star players and they've had to reach contract agreements with many of them. But obviously this Aiyuk situation seems to have gotten more intense than all or almost all of them. Nick Bosa was still negotiating at this point last season. But in an isolated contract negotiation, if you're not considering a trade as a possibility, something 49ers weren't considering a trade as a possibility up until, a week or 2 weeks ago, the reports are now. You've got the player under contract in this situation for 2024. So if you don't want him to go anywhere, he can't go anywhere. He's under contract at $14.1 million for the 2024 season. Therefore, you've got recourse as the team. The player has no recourse unless the team decides to move off of the player for different reasons. The 49ers also have a potential franchise tag that they can use on Brandon Aiyuk in 2025, although at this point, that's a really far out thought. I think a lot of people are just focused on 2024. Where's Aiyuk going to be for this 2024 season? And obviously, there is discord. Obviously, there have been emotions involved. Obviously, there is talk of potential trade. The 49ers have opened the floor for Aiyuk and his representation to do that. And because they've done that, the arena of a potential trade is also in play when we discuss leverage. Now, in the case of a potential trade, which the 49ers say that they're open to for Brandon Aiyuk, but they would have to ratify for it to happen. That's a key right here. In the case of a potential trade, Brandon Aiyuk has essential veto power, essential no trade clause. Because if a trade is going to happen, another team is going to have to agree with the 49ers for compensation. So they're going to have to send draft picks. They're going to have to send players. I don't know if you're talking about the Steelers, George Pickens, a receiver, James Daniels, an offensive guard, a combo of both. 49ers would have to agree to that compensation. Then once the 49ers have agreed to the compensation, in theory, Brandon Aiyuk would also have to agree to a potential long-term deal with the acquiring team. In this case, in this example that we're talking about, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if Brandon Aiyuk doesn't agree to a deal with the acquiring team, then the deal is off. That means that Brandon Aiyuk has leverage. He can maybe not directly dictate where he goes, but he can dictate where he won't go. It's like a no trade clause. We might have seen that happen with the New England Patriots because the New England Patriots seemed so excited just yesterday afternoon based on the report from Mike Reese that Brandon Aiyuk might come their way if they throw enough money at him. They're prepared to make him, quote unquote, a top 5 receiver. According to Josina Anderson, that number was lower, like at 28.5 million, but the top 5 number that would be associated with what the Patriots reporter Mike Reese said New England was willing to pay would be upwards of 30 million. But all of a sudden, Adam Schefter reported that the Patriots weren't interested anymore. If we put 2 and 2 together, that means that Aiyuk said no. He exercised his leverage. He exercised his veto power in the context or the arena of a potential trade. When it comes to the Steelers, Aiyuk has already implied or maybe even straight up said it's been very all over the place from Brandon Aiyuk. It's been cryptic, and I think what we've heard a bunch of different things. We've also heard that he wants to stay with the 49ers over the course of this offseason. So it's really hard to get a firm read on this, but it does seem that he's much more warm to the Steelers as a potential destination. So it would not surprise me if Brandon Aiyuk has agreed to compensation with the Steelers, but the 49ers would also have to do their part. And until this leaves the arena of an isolated contract negotiation, which means until the 49ers have agreed to trade compensation with a team, then it doesn't move to Aiyuk's arena. So there are 2 leverage arenas that you absolutely must pay attention to, and the 49ers must agree to a trade before the leverage shifts to Brandon Aiyuk. So that's where we are this morning before I head to training camp. Based on all reports, the battle of the wills continues. It's a standoff, and it's a situation where the 49ers are, quite frankly, when I just look at this with my own business analysis, the 49ers are not incentivized to move too soon. They could keep Brandon Aiyuk in a holding pattern really indefinitely. Would it be uncomfortable for Kyle Shanahan? Of course. I think this hold-in is extremely uncomfortable for Kyle Shanahan as it is, but the 49ers must also make sure that they're practicing good, cold, calculated business strategy at this point. And it's now August 7th. So it's still very, very early in this relative process. And when you think of trades or potential trades of this nature, you think of something happening before the draft, or you think of something happening before the trade deadline. Right now, we are smack dab in the middle of those 2 things, which is the awkward time, which is generally the time when the seller in a trade is not going to get the best price. So the 49ers can hold firm here. And I think that from just a cold-hearted business analytics point of view, holding firm seems to be their best opportunity. Now, there could be human dynamics that speed this up, and I think that's why we're all waiting with bated breath to see what happens next with Brandon Aiyuk. All right, just wanted to talk about the 2 arenas of leverage. The 49ers own the leverage in one of them. Brandon Aiyuk holds the leverage in the other, and the 49ers must agree to a trade before the leverage shifts to Aiyuk. We'll see if and when that happens. I'm on my way down to training camp, so stay tuned for some updates. We'll talk to you all very soon. This has been a 49ers 2-minute drill.